everybody. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. We are live. Thank you guys for bearing with us as we are here in Vegas. It's a little different. I hope I've adjusted the audio levels. Let me know at the start of the show if there's anything that's super off, and if a lot of you complain, I will fix it quickly. But I'm so excited because, my God, guys, I'm here with not only Steph and Lewis, but Christopher Melcher himself is here in the flesh. Oh my God, we are not worthy. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show. So excited to have your legal expertise here. How is it? Welcome to Vegas.
Well, this is so awesome. Great to be with you in person. I mean, I wanted to come out from Los Angeles to be here. And I mean, the coverage is just awesome. I mean, you're all doing such a great job. So just thanks for letting me be part of the show.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for always taking our calls and helping us get insight, helping us make it make sense, as my shirt conveniently says. Brian of No System knows you can get all our shirts. Actually, we've been selling a lot of Justice for Johnny shirts. I think we already raised $1,000 for Tampa Bay Crisis Center on top of everything else. So mods, if you share any of our shirts, the Justice for Johnny ones proceeds go to our Crisis Center Tampa Bay, but we also have a lot of other fun shirts. Thanks, Brian. I've realized I saw it. A lot of this trial is make it make sense. This could be the tagline of a lot of what's happening, what we're seeing.
Couch.
Couch. And today was the Muffin Man is today's thing. Do you know where the Muffin Man is? The Muffin Man? Where is the Muffin Man? Did you buy the muffin? What's going on with the muffin? Kim, what is up with the muffin, Kim?
That is a great question, and I think it's one that we will definitely visit in the next hour.
So this muffin thing was a big deal today. I actually missed it, but Kim was filling me in on how extreme the muffining got. So we'll get to there and so much more throughout. Oh, sorry, hold on, my button click. We'll get to that and so much more as we recap day 9 of the Johnny Depp trial. Christopher, you've been in and out on this, obviously paying attention. Are you surprised at sort of how interested people are now getting into this case? I mean, it's exploding.
Yeah, the numbers are huge because basically it's the raw, unscripted life story of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. We haven't even got to hear from her yet, but it's captivating. It's interesting. I'm learning a lot about Johnny. I just had no idea his background and the struggles that he had. Especially just trying to cope with the childhood abuse that he suffered. I mean, it's just heartbreaking story. And then now we're seeing the inside of that relationship. So it's no wonder that the numbers are that big. I do wish the attorneys would move the case along quicker.
Yeah.
Because this is theater, a trial's theater. But, gee, there's some really boring parts in it, too.
Some very boring parts. I'm so grateful to Kim and the team who've helped us today get through some of the boring parts so we could still enjoy what we're supposed to have, a vacation here in Vegas with everybody. But the show must go on. And thanks again. I got to give another shout out to Michael Jackson 1, Cirque du Soleil. If you come to Vegas, go see the show. We're seeing it Thursday, but they helped us with the suite and the tickets, and we can't wait to see it. Michael Jackson is innocent. I say it every episode. We will go bring some more facts later in the show because I want to get you guys more ingrained. You're following this case. You should really do a deep dive into the Michael Jackson case because I know a lot of you, what, Andy? No, if you're saying what, Andy, go watch Square One on YouTube. We'll tell you more. But I just got to always give a prop to Michael Jackson, the legend. I don't like what happened. The more I've learned about that case, it's wild. And we'll give you more here on the channel. In fact, us and being here. We do this pop culture justice all the time, so look forward to staying with you guys. All right, but let's get to today's update. Kim, can you walk us through our first guest? I have an image here. What was the name of this first guest we have? This was someone on the island, correct?
Yes, this was Tara Roberts, and she works on Johnny's private island, and she also did a lot of the organization for their wedding on the island. So she's been present through a lot of this relationship in the sense of she saw the wedding, she's seen conflict on the island, she was there when Johnny was detoxing. So she's got a lot to pull from as far as her experience with Depp and Amber and seeing how they interact.
Okay, so let's play this clip a little bit to watch a little bit more of what the sort of best moment of her testimony.
What communications, if any, did you have with Miss Heard about the wedding?
We were given information on a schedule to better help me schedule and the provisioning, beverages and food and things like that. What time foods were when people were coming in, how many people would be at meals. It was detailed. It was what was happening each day, and then it was the rehearsal night. and there would be dinner, dancing, drugs, music, and then the wedding. We were very conscious about doing the wedding. The next day, we were doing the wedding, the ceremony, and we were specific on time when the ceremony was about to happen. It actually happened earlier than it was scheduled. The bridal party and Amber showed up early, and we were still scrambling for flowers and setting up and getting beverages, and the ceremony proceeded earlier than was scheduled.
Who did you observe drinking alcohol at the wedding?
Pretty much everybody
Yeah,
was drinking and doing shots and celebrating. It was a party.
What, if anything, do you remember about that particular time that Mr. Depp and Miss Heard came down to the island?
There was a incident between Johnny and Amber.
Can you please describe that incident?
On the evening, we kind of called it a night. Dinner was finished. Myself and CJ came to the office, and Johnny was in the office, and he was agitated, kind of walking back and forth. The three of us were in the office, and Amber came in, and she was asking him to tell him to come back to the house. Please come back. I'm sorry. Come back. He stood here, reluctant to go. He left the office and got into his vehicle and started it up, and Amber went outside and stood in front of the vehicle so that it didn't drive away. Amber was standing in front of it. She was asking him to don't leave. I'm sorry. Come back to the house. After a couple minutes, she got in the vehicle and they left to go up back to their house.
What happened after they went back up to the house?
CJ and I were still in the office and decided that maybe it would be best if we just drove up there just to make sure that everything was okay. And we drove up to their house. His vehicle was in the parking lot, and you could hear inside the house Amber yelling and Johnny answering back. And then you started to hear Amber was telling him that he was a washed up actor, he was going to die a fat, lonely old man. Then you heard, you hit me with a can. You heard Johnny say, you hit me with a can. And then he came down the steps, and Amber was behind him. She had a bottle in her hand, and there was a brief pause, the moment, I think, of initial shock. Neither Johnny nor Amber knew that we were there. He was sitting in the seat. Amber came up to him and was asking him to come back in the house, that she was sorry, please come back in the house. He didn't come out of the seat, and she was hugging and kissing him, and I love you, I love you. She was telling him I loved you. He didn't react. Johnny sat there, eventually got out of the John Deere and proceeded to start to walk away. At that time, Amber started to grab at him and his shirt and trying to pull him back to the house, basically viciously trying to pull him back and get him back into the house and yelling at him. And at that point, I was between them. I was getting worried about what was going to happen, and it was best that I remove him from the situation. CJ took Amber back to the house, and I walked Johnny over to the cafe, which was basically 30 seconds away from the house.
And you mentioned that Miss Heard was viciously trying to pull Mr. Depp back. Can you explain what you mean by that?
It was like clawing, grabbing at his clothes, grabbing his hair, trying to like pull him back, like an angry, like he was leaving and come back. He couldn't leave in the vehicle because the keys had been taken out. So there wasn't a way for Johnny to drive away. The only way was for him to walk away.
How did Mr. Depp react to Miss Heard viciously grabbing him?
He didn't. He stood there with his arms by his side. He didn't do anything.
Ms. Roberts, when you were back in the cafe with Mr. Depp, what happened next?
When we went back to the cafe, he had a mark across the bridge of his nose. He walked over to the love seat at the cafe, and he laid down and went to sleep.
When did you next see Miss Heard?
I saw her that morning.
What, if any, makeup was Miss Heard wearing?
Again, I'm not sure if she wore makeup on the island. If it was very natural looking.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Miss Heard?
I didn't observe any.
What, if any, injuries did you observe on Mr. Depp?
The marking across the bridge of his nose.
Did you see any Amica cream applied? Christopher, look, that's another witness who's now testifying against sort of visualizing Amber doing this. Again, this isn't good for her, right? She's brought nobody to the table that's been able to witness interactions with Johnny, and now we have yet another person, granted it's his staff. How do you think this testimony will fare to the jury?
Well, it's great. I mean, Amber hasn't got to put her case on yet, but, this is Johnny's case, and it is great evidence because this witness is articulate. She's very clear. She's giving factual information. She's not guessing or speculating, talking about things what other people told her. These are firsthand observations that show Johnny consistently trying to avoid the conflict, and that Amber is seeking it out, that every time he wants to go away, she wants to pull him back in. So this all feeds into his story that she's the dominant aggressor, and that if this was an abusive relationship, she is the abuser.
Yeah, it's wild. Kim, was there anything else to take away from her? Do we have another clip of hers, or was that the main takeaway there?
There was one other clip. A theme of today is Elaine she was center stage today. She had a lot of moments today that were quite entertaining. So Elaine popped on after Johnny's team spoke with Tara and asked her a few questions. So, and she seemed to be very obsessed with this idea about meals and what food was there and all that. Like, she fixated on these very random things, and then she much of what she was objecting to just kept getting thrown out. Like, she was talking, but nothing that she was saying was sticking. And she also brought up makeup again. So I have a little clip of that for you guys.
Okay, great. Good pull. Here we go. This is them complaining about dinner and drinks. Sorry for that noise on this. If there's a cord problem in I moved things. I didn't test that. It should stop. Here's the, I guess, dinner and drinks and things, right? And I'm curious your take on this as a lawyer. What's the line here of what's allowed to be done and what's really worth Elaine?
What communications, if any, did you have with Miss Heard about the wedding?
Wait, sorry, this one.
Okay. So, last couple questions. The makeup or not makeup, you were asked whether you observed any injuries on Amber in the December 2015 timeframe. Do you believe Amber would cover up bruises to hide them from the kids?
Objection calls for speculation.
Do you have any understanding, based on your knowledge of Amber, whether she would try to cover up any bruises or cuts?
Same objection.
To keep them from the kids?
I'll sustain the objection.
You said
what kids?
That you didn't believe that Amber was wearing much makeup, but you said she participated in a photo shoot in December 2015. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Do you know whether Amber was wearing any makeup for a photo shoot?
I'm not sure the part that I saw, she was in and out of the water.
Do you know whether Amber would
water
want
makeup
to show bruises or cuts in a photo shoot?
Objection calls for speculation.
I'll sustain the objection.
I have no further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, redirect.
Is there more with the meals, or that because that was just still showing her ridiculous?
That was it. It's just she just kept on going for things, and every time it was objection. She was going nowhere constantly. The entire time she questioned her, it was just ridiculous. It was painful, and that's just a sample of it. And I figured that the makeup thing was entertaining because I know how much we all care.
That Amica cream.
The Amica cream and the Milani palette and all those things. This is becoming a big. We're becoming a beauty YouTube channel, guys.
It is great. I didn't think it would happen, but it has.
So much.
She talks about the dinner and stuff with actually the psychologist. I mixed the two. But I mean, is that one of those objections where she just wants to say those things out loud to create a she doesn't know the answers to that? Is that what the trick is there?
That's what it is. We call it showboating, and the questions were wrong. I mean, they weren't going to get in there, calling for speculation, bringing up hearsay. She was doing that all day long. She's super annoying and grating to listen to. So I don't think that so she's not doing her client any favors, because if she has questions, she should try and indoctrinate and get the witness to kind of give favorable information rather than confronting her. She wasn't even attempting to do that. She just wanted to go have a platform to make her points to the jury, knowing that all the objections would be sustained. So I give her a big F on that performance.
There you go. Christopher gives her the F.
What communication?
There we go. So next up, we are now into the psychologist, correct? Hold on, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, let me close this.
the
Sorry, bear
makeup
with me,
or not-
guys. Sorry. Now, I do want to say, because I saw some of you guys in the comments
Conducting my
before we started, Andy, don't make fun of her disorders. You called her nuts. Here's what I'm going to say. Anybody, and I'll go close up on this, anybody who's going to fake disorders, I'm sorry, I'm going to call her nuts. That's what I'm referring to in this title, and I'm going to own it. If you're offended, I'm sorry. That's nuts. This what we're about to hear here from the psychologist take, who breaks down quite eloquently, I thought very smartly. I did hear a lot of these clips already. She just really describes the Amber we've heard on these tapes, etc. And Kim, this was someone who actually spent several hours, correct, diagnosing, and granted it was hired by Johnny. And I want to get Christopher's take. Like, does that really negate her expertise, or, experience? But Kim, just to set up this clip, who is this psychologist we're about to see?
So this is Dr. Shannon Curry. She is a very accomplished psychologist. She started in the military, so she's done a lot of work with people to do with trauma disorders and very complicated situations and the way that they relate to family dynamics. And she's also done a lot to do with Alexandra was actually weighing in our chat. If you guys remember her, she's a very good friend of the show that's helped us a number of times. And she was saying that the type of psychology that she does, she actually works with criminals. She works with criminal psychology. So she has a very well-rounded psychological background, and she's been practicing for 15 years. So she explains a lot of different disorders through all these clips, but her official title, she's a certified forensic evaluator and psychologist for the state of Hawaii and for California. So she's legit. She's a legit expert in this, which Elaine really wants to make people forget, but she is very well established. And she opens up talking about what PTSD is. She explains a basic definition of that before the clip begins, the first one here. And she's going to talk about how she evaluated Amber, why the results from those evaluations supported her diagnosis that she gave Amber, as well as explaining what the disorders are, and how she was diagnosed. So that's the first clip here.
Okay, and sorry, I'm trying to tell me if I've leveled everyone out. Christopher, I'm going to come to you now, before I even play it. When an expert like this is hired by Johnny's team, are we to take that, is it fair for Elaine, and she does, try to discredit her by saying, well, she's hired by them? What is before we even watch this and look at her, what is your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's always an easy attack to make on any hired gun. But this is a very skilled and accomplished person who's used to testifying in matters like this. She would control for her bias. So there is, understandable when you're hired by one side that you might affiliate with that side, but there's ways of controlling for that, which is making sure that she's using a rigorous process for psychological testing. She gave this MMPI test. She's looked at audio tapes. She's had interviews in depth. So she would be controlling as much as she can for that. But the main thing is that the opinion isn't as important as the analysis. So she's gone through in detail and saying, this is all the effort I did. This is the information that I relied on. These are my conclusions. These are why I hold these conclusions. And they all logically flow. So it's not like the opinion is absurd. It makes a lot of sense what she's saying.
Okay, let's hear it. And then, Steph, I'm going to get some of your thoughts too, but let's hear this first clip. We got a lot to hear from the psychologist.
Evaluation, I met with Ms. Heard on 2 separate dates, December 10th and December 17th, 2021. We spent 12 hours directly with one another. However, there were more hours involved in the evaluation with some breaks. So we spent 7 hours together on the first day, December 10th. And then on the 17th, we spent a little more than 8 hours in the evaluation from start to finish, with a 1 hour break and another half hour of breaks distributed throughout the day. The results of Ms. Heard's evaluation supported 2 diagnoses, borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder. So the DSM-5, that stands for the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, version 5, and that contains every diagnosis we use in mental health. It's the authoritative manual of mental diagnoses. To understand a personality disorder, I think it can be helpful first to kind of define personality. So personality, these are the traits, the characteristics, the way we think, we feel, and we act that make us who we are. And these traits are pretty stable over time and across situations. We might be sure to mind our P's and Q's when we're meeting somebody new, but overall, if somebody were to describe us or if we were to describe ourselves, we have a pretty good sense of who we are. An easy way to think of it is imagining how you might describe a brother or sister or a child if you have children. Their personalities are pretty clear to you. A personality disorder is some sort of dysfunction in those enduring traits. So as opposed to other types of mental illness, when you think about something like depression, that's episodic. It comes and it goes, and when it's treated with medication, it can pretty much be completely mitigated or minimized in a person's life, and their personality is still there, separate from the depression. When we have a personality disorder, there are going to be disturbances in several different areas that are visible in almost all different facets of their life. They can be diagnosed in a treating environment. Treating psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist simply does a diagnostic interview, which involves assessing multiple areas of a person's history back down through childhood.
I'm going to stop you for a second.
Yes.
What's a treating environment?
In therapy, if somebody is going in for treatment, the mental health provider will ask them questions to find out what sort of symptoms they've experienced and what sort of things have occurred in their life that might be consistent with these disorders, or rule out these disorders, prove that there is no reason for these disorders to be considered. They might also pay attention to their observations of the client over time and new information the client provides them. The most reliable way, however, to ever come about a diagnosis really is through a comprehensive psychological assessment. And I might use the words assessment, examination, testing interchangeably. They all mean the same thing.
And she must love watching this. I'm sorry, I didn't want to, but my God, can you imagine Amber Heard having to sit there and listen to this doctor diagnose her? Oh my God, all right, sorry, we'll come back, but had to remark on how funny this is.
It's combining information from multiple different sources. One main source is psychological testing using validated objective measures. That means that they've been tested, they've been shown to be accurate for testing what you want to test, and in the environment you're testing. So there are measures specific for court environments where someone might respond differently. You integrate that with the same interview I was telling you that people would do for therapy. We do that as well. And then in a courtroom setting, you're going to look at all the legal records, all of those documents, corroborating information to sort of check your hypotheses that may be developing, and also check against the examinee's statements to confirm whether you have enough evidence of a certain diagnosis. A clinical interview is a very comprehensive interview. It includes a person's entire life history, as well as very specifically looks at any symptoms they might have. This can start as far back as birth. You might find out if there were any issues with their delivery, any genetic issues, any intellectual issues. How did they do? What was their home life like? How was discipline handled? What's their relationship with their primary caregivers, their parents? How many siblings do they have? How do they get along with their siblings? How many times did they have to move? Was there any abuse? Did they have any really significant life experiences that come to mind when they think about their childhood? How were they as a student? Did they need special services? Did they get in trouble at school? And you do this, you continue on high school. What were their hobbies? Did they play sports? How many friends did they have? Did they have any trouble keeping those friendships? And you get into adulthood. Did they go to college? Did they not go to college? How come? What sort of jobs have they held? How did those jobs go? How did they end? That's always an important question. What sort of romantic relationships have they been involved in? How do they identify sexually, culturally? What sort of symptoms have they experienced? You go through the entire gamut of some of the main symptoms. You might screen for depression, any disorganized thinking that isn't necessarily in touch with reality, any current distress they may be having today. There was information that supported it from multiple sources. One of the main tests that I used, she obtained scores that were consistent with those diagnoses. There was evidence of those diagnoses in her records and in her self-report. The first was actually my own behavioral observations of her based on her self-report. So one of the hallmark characteristics of histrionic personality disorder is sort of a overly dramatic presentation. We call this impressionistic speech. So it tends to be very flowery. It uses a lot of descriptive words like magical, wonderful, and it can go on for quite some time, and yet it really lacks any substance. So at the end, you're left wondering what was just said or what the answer is to the actual question. So that occurred a number of times. And it also represented the quick shifts you'll see between emotions. So she would suddenly be one way, and then she would become very animated or very sad. And when people are displaying these emotions with this personality disorder, there's a sense of shallowness to it. People who are observing them will feel like it's almost play acting, and they might not be able to put their finger on it, but part of it is because of the rapidness with which the person can switch emotions, and also the lack of substance. They don't really refer to, I feel this way. They might describe emotions, they might describe events, but very rarely, and Ms. Heard did not say, I feel vulnerable. She never really indicated a vulnerable feeling of her own.
There's a lot here. This Steph.
Yeah.
We're going to keep playing, but Steph, I need a reaction because we're all sort of watching this and reacting. How much do you think Amber's enjoying this? What do you think she's writing on her notepad? Oh crap! I'm effed.
Yeah, that would certainly be accurate. There's one thing that she said, and I've actually noted it down. So she said one thing that was supporting her diagnosis was how she was reacting, her behaviour, what she was saying. So she would say things like magical, wonderful, but there was no substance for what she was actually saying in those words. I put nice, polite way of this doctor turning round and saying that her words are coming out of her ass, basically.
Yeah. It's a very clinical way of saying that.
Very clinical way of saying that she talks a load of BS. Do you know what I mean? And I just thought that was like, boom! Love this doctor already. But yeah, it's got to be difficult for... I mean, I'm not defending Amber Heard, don't get me wrong. But for anyone that thinks that they're healthy, that mentally they're saying this, that, and the other, for them to hear a doctor who is this well-informed...
And gorgeous.
Gorgeous, yeah.
That's not helping either. She must be so threatened by this woman, it's not even
Tell
funny.
me about, right?
I see all the people in the chat have such a crush on this doctor. They're like, oh my God, she's so gorgeous and brilliant. Yeah, that must make Amber be like...
Right? And with all the qualifications up the wazoo with this lass, I mean, I saw the beginnings of it where she was going through her qualifications. I think it took half an hour to explain all the qualifications she's got. This lass is loaded up with the qualifications. But with everything like that, it's got to be difficult for someone who thinks that they're the bee's knees, that mentally they're stable, this, that, and the other, to hear someone like that turn around and say, sorry, lass, you're a little bit nuts in the head. You've got personality disorders coming out of your backside. Deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah, see, and I don't want to say...
It's not. And I'm just saying nuts in a comical way.
Yeah,
Guys,
yeah,
I suffer from mental health as well. But to me,
we're all
it's
nuts
a case...
in a way.
To me, and disclaimer... you've got to try and laugh at it to try and take away some of the stigma, and that's it. But... yeah, it's either way, whether you're Amber Heard or whoever, it's got to be difficult for someone to turn around like that and say, you've got a personality disorder, when you in your head literally think, I'm fine.
Oh, I think
it's got to be difficult to hear.
I think this woman loved diagnosing her in front of Amber. What do you think, Christopher?
Well, I mean, it's hard because one of the features of these disorders that she's talking about is an extreme sensitivity to criticism, and it's all sourced in really a low self-esteem and fear of abandonment that causes her to lash out, attack other people, and make them feel dependent on her. So to sit there and listen to this has got to be very difficult. I think if any of us heard that, we would be like, wow, okay, how can I learn from it? How can I be a better person? How could I improve? But this has got to be very difficult. And also what the psychologist was saying was really, this is something about Amber. It's not external. So it's not like one of the military patients that has PTSD based on some event that they experienced or depression. This is something wrong internally with Amber. And that is a very difficult thing to accept, but it does explain all the behavior that we're seeing by Amber. perfectly well.
Yeah, there was just a confidence to this doctor. I feel like she probably doesn't like this type of person and had no qualms saying it in front of her. When I don't know, maybe she didn't enjoy it. It's her job; she has to do it. But more thoughts to come. But there's a lot. Let's play a few more clips.
Okay, so psychological tests. First of all, I asked her a couple questions from something called the mini mental status exam. That's really just a fancy way of saying that I wanted to make sure that she was alert and oriented to, we call it person, place, and time. That means she knew who she was, she knew who I was, she knew where we were, and she knew the date. That way I can ensure that she's able to participate in the evaluation and understand what's happening. I then administered something called the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory 2, and this is something we call an objective measure. It asks 567 questions, more statements, and the person either agrees or disagrees with them, how much the statement represents them. And this test has been around since 1943. There are more than 10,000 studies showing that it is appropriate for determining somebody's personality traits and how a person thinks, feels, and behaves in multiple different aspects of their lives. It also measures very accurately any signs of mental illness or dysfunction. And the reason I also really like this test, whenever you're using a test for an evaluation that's going to be used in a forensic setting, people have a lot of incentive to present themselves in a way that's going to benefit their case. And they may want to look like they're sicker than they really are. They may want to look much healthier than they really are. And some of those incentives, they may not even realize that they're intending to do that. So it can be conscious or unconscious, but you really need to have a test that can check for that. And the MMPI-2 has a set of validity scales, we call them. These are scales that measure really the truthfulness and accuracy with which a person is approaching the test. And these scales on this particular test have been so well researched over many decades that they've become very nuanced, and they can tell us a lot about if somebody's, for instance, exaggerating. Are they elevating one of the scales that shows that they're exaggerating on purpose? Are they exaggerating in a manner that's more like a cry for help?
This is crazy.
Are they exaggerating in a manner that's clever and sophisticated or more obvious? And then the same exact thing goes for trying to minimize symptoms. We have a number of scales that can show us all the different, if somebody's trying to say they're the most wonderful person on earth, or if they're just trying to deny problems, and if they're doing that again in a very clever way.
Christopher, how much of this is true, and how much is she showboating right now?
Oh, no, it's absolutely true. So we use this MMPI a lot. I've taken it myself. And the scales that she's talking about, there's a series of questions in there that kind of detect if you're trying to portray yourself in a false light. So example of a question would be, I have never lied. I have never stolen anything. I have never had an impure thought. And there's like 20 questions just like that over the course of the 560. So if you start answering all those yes, it's unbelievable. Nobody could ever say, no, right, deny any of those things. So then the score would come out saying this person is trying to portray themselves in a false light. And then they also take into account the fact that she's going through a court case and would naturally want to make herself look better. And so they're going to give her kind of a pass and elevate, like a handicap there to do that. And you could start thinking about it. I know when I took the test, one of the questions I think was, I played with dolls as a child. And you have to check whether you're male or female. So I'm thinking like, what are they getting at here? But so you could really start thinking into it, but it's a very well regarded test. And then that's going to come out and say, hey, the way that she answered this question is going to indicate this personality disorder, which helps validate her conclusions, and it's objective, and it gets away from that whole bias question we started off with.
That makes sense. All right, so it is legit. And so if you have a client and they bring in an expert like this to start identifying your client like this, would you be sitting there nervous, like, well, this isn't good? Is this, as we get to this? Well, we can hear more, but I'm curious. Do you feel like this is credible?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is bad for her, and we're going to see maybe how her reaction is. And the thing is, the jury's listening to all this, and then when Amber talks on the stand, they're probably going to be looking at this impressionistic words. Is she going to be using language like this?
Yeah,
is she going to attack Johnny's a lawyer. I mean, this is
Oh, God.
we're just going to wind it
Her
up and see what
testimony.
happens.
Is there a version where she doesn't testify at this point?
No.
Because she has to, right?
I think, John, I don't know what the rules in Virginia, but in California, in most courts, you can call the opponent to the stand in your case. And so
So if they don't call her, Johnny can call her.
well, I think Johnny, before he rests his case, can call her to the stand as a hostile witness and put her up on the stand and say,
but if they don't do that and Amber doesn't call her,
oh, yeah.
then they're screwed?
Well, yeah, then there's nothing there. They're going to try then to rest just on
The fact that
the
she didn't
statement.
speak up, yeah.
Well, it's just like, is the statement opinion and is it clear enough? They could, but I would imagine Johnny's lawyer is going to haul her up on the stand and say, admit this, admit this, admit that.
Guys, I can't wait for that testimony. Oh my God, we will be here watching it. Trust me. So hit the subscribe. All right, here's some more
Or
on the
more of an obvious way. So that test was my choice for this case. There's one other reason I'd like to add is that part of my evaluation, one of the reasons was to assess whether Ms. Heard has post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the incidents that she's alleged occurred by Mr. Depp. That's a really tough disorder to find out if somebody's faking it or not. It's one of the most easily faked disorders. Most of us know what it feels like to feel anxious, and a lot of people have seen war movies and movies that depict somebody having PTSD. In fact, some research has shown that if you give someone a diagnostic checklist and said, show that you have PTSD, they can do it 96% of the time, just someone on the street. So you really need a test that's very sensitive to that, and the MMPI-2 has been shown in multiple studies to be excellent at detecting those attempts. So I also performed the clinician-administered PTSD scale. To do that test, you first administer something called the Life Events Checklist. And the Life Events Checklist, both of these tests, by the way, were developed by the National Center for PTSD with the Department of Veterans Affairs. But the Life Events Checklist lists 16 different very stressful life events that people can go through that are often can be associated with developing PTSD. And then it also has a 17th item that you can fill in if you feel like you've been through something really difficult that wasn't included. Now, I like to also add something called the Life Events Checklist 5 interview, which digs a little bit deeper into the person's childhood as well. There's so many different things that can be difficult growing up. And also, it's very important that you have the person determine which of the events they've listed, let's say they have a number
Get
of
Elaine
different
like,
types
oh, tell
of
me more.
traumas, which one do they feel like was the most, and sometimes they can't just identify one. That leads to your next decision. So if they have multiple different similar types of events, like seeing combat, then you might use that as the worst one. Now, if somebody had multiple different traumas from different times in their life, like childhood abuse, and then went to combat and had some horrible things happen there, you would do the clinician-administered PTSD scale test. You do one for the childhood event and a separate one for the adulthood event. The MMPI-2 is actually the most commonly used assessment worldwide by mental health professionals and in forensic settings for the court. I used it for that purpose and for its excellent validity in those settings across genders, across ethnicities, for different reasons, but then also for detecting the accuracy with which a person reports PTSD. These are behaviors that are usually very extreme and very concerning to the people around them. The anger, it's counteractive, right? So the thing these people fear most is being abandoned, but over time, the explosive anger that they show when somebody is needing space or when somebody's really not doing anything wrong, because a lot of times they read into things that they perceive as being a slight to them or being somebody intending to harm them that actually isn't happening. They'll exaggerate it and they'll explode. They'll react in this heightened manner that is just exhausting for their partners. Oftentimes, their partners will try to make them happy at first and really allow themselves to be a punching bag, thinking that they can somehow solve this problem, that somehow they can make this better. And eventually, it just overwhelms them.
Are you familiar with the term emotional reactivity?
Emotional reactivity is very common in the diagnosis. Like I said, there's instability in emotions. People with borderline personality disorder are often misdiagnosed as having bipolar disorder because they can be up and down. They can look very depressed, then they can look very elated, but these changes are happening within a matter of hours. Somebody with bipolar disorder, this is a clinical depression lasting days, weeks, a clinical mania where sometimes they even need to be hospitalized. With borderline personality disorder, you're having these fluctuating moods constantly. And again, this hypersensitivity to being slighted or feeling offended, really driven by the fear that if you're offended or slighted, if the therapist comes in 2 minutes late, or if somebody shows up to dinner 2 minutes late, that they might be abandoning you. And it's not as if the borderline is considering themselves abandoned in that moment, but they just know that they have this overwhelming emotion, and there are no attempts to control that emotion. There are no attempts to regulate it. So if they're in the middle of the restaurant and they feel offended, they're going to start the fight. People are going to see it, or they might just start crying or break down, but they'll make a lot of accusations, and that reactivity is when you're going to see a lot of this escalation in the bizarre behavior. They can react violently, they can react aggressively, they will often physically prevent their partner from trying to leave if their partner wants to get space from all of this intense emotion, and oftentimes they will be abusive to their partners in these situations. Sometimes they'll physically restrain them from leaving and become injured that way, but also people with borderline personality disorder, it seems to be a predictive factor for women who implement violence against their partner. And one of the most common tactics that they'll use is actually physically assaulting and then getting harmed themselves. But mostly, we call this administrative violence. Essentially, this is saying that they'll make threats using the legal system. So they might say that they are going to file a restraining order or claim abuse, or they might do these things to essentially try to keep their partner from leaving. In the moment, again, they're not consciously thinking, I'm going to keep my partner from leaving right now. They're just thinking, I can't stand this. I hate my partner. They went from idealizing to suddenly devaluing because of the hurt, and they'll do anything to express that big emotion of anger.
God, this is so depressing that we get this therapy session like this, and there's so much more to go through, guys. We're going to be a little longer just because I really want to dissect this doctor. Fascinating stuff. Plus, the doctor's about to reveal that Amber and Rocky, her old friend, right, Kim, they're no longer friends. So teasing, there's more to come. This gets juicier and juicier, but I'm just pausing to offer some of our commentary because I'm going to forget because there's a lot to digest here. I want to go to you, actually, Kim, because as you're seeing this, I mean, he's defining Amber like, I mean, my God, is this surprising you at all?
I mean, honestly, that's part of why, like, I kept all this in, because as I was watching this, my mouth was just like on the floor, and I was at one point I was literally like screaming because I was like, how is this so accurate? And I was like, I can't cut any of this. This is so important for people to see, and also for Johnny, that people understand what's happening here and why Johnny has said this before, why he has alleged before that he believes that she has BPD, and we're seeing it here. And I just thought that later on, Elaine does cross-examine this doctor and tries very hard to discredit her and make it sound like she walked into this situation going, I am going to get a BPD diagnosis for Amber, whether she has it or not. And I think it's important that everybody sees all the work that she put into this, because she's fantastic. Like, she is thorough. And I hope that you all see that. And I just wanted to show that proof to all of you so that you know that that's the case.
Yeah, there's just a lot to. Let's keep going.
Reactivity.
I'll get to your comments, guys, if you have them.
If
And
any
Steph's
emotional
taking notes. If you
reactivity
have a thought, I'll get to
did
you.
you observe in your review?
So there were a couple indications to me. Dr. Cohen's records, he refers to this reactivity quite a bit, and to Ms. Heard's temper. And that temper, it's often branded, or being hot-headed, is really characteristic of borderline personality disorder, as is their very charming, personable nature. This is a disorder of contradictions. In Nurse Filati's notes, she references a night when they're out to dinner, I believe in London, and she provided positive reinforcement to Ms. Heard because Ms. Heard had been disappointed by a mistake made by the server, and it sort of references how previously she might have criticized the server or become upset by that. And that she didn't this time, and so that had been some sort of a step forward. There was also an indication actually in Dr. Hughes's, Dr. Hughes is a forensic psychologist who had been appointed by Ms. Heard to conduct as an evaluation as well. In Ms. Hughes's interview of Ms. Heard disclosed that she had cut her arm in the past, which is a typical reactive type thing somebody with this diagnosis can do. It's one of the symptoms. Moving into deposition testimony, what struck me was Ms. Raquel Pennington's testimony. She's a former friend of Ms. Heard's, and she told a story about, I suppose, they were shopping for Thanksgiving accoutrements, something to prepare for Thanksgiving, and Ms. Heard struck her in the face, sort of out of the blue, which is, I thought was interesting, because that is one of those signs of borderline personality disorder where if a friend or a loved one isn't meeting your needs in that moment, people with borderline personality disorder can be very caring in their relationships. As long as their needs are being met, they feel that their needs should be met when they want them met, at a specific level.
Couch,
and if they're
now.
not, then that anger, that sense of harm causes them to react. So the striking Ms. Pennington's report in the declaration or the testimony, I thought was pretty consistent.
You indicated Miss Pennington was a former friend of,
Yes.
of Miss Heard. Is there a relationship between borderline personality disorder and intimate relationships?
Yes.
Hold on, we need Kim, right? Former friend. How much tea was that? And you know they did that on purpose to reiterate. That was a smart move. But you said that was her former friend to just set the tone that even her own friends have now aren't here. Anyway. You caught that, I imagine, Kim.
Yeah,
that was
that's part of why I kept that part in, because it's again, like, it's so exposing, and it's like Andy and I are talking through the day, and he's like, we got to keep the clips small and everything, and I'm going like, but I can't. There's so much here that everybody needs to see.
This one's a pretty juicy. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah. So thank you for bearing with us, guys, and great work, everybody, Kim and team. Because I'm glad we got to watch this in its entirety, because it's very revealing, and I find her credible. Right? This is not good. She's setting it all. It's a little long. There's a little, but she's all that stuff. Steph, are you feeling it? Like all the stuff she's laying out is making it even more effective, don't you think?
Oh, Amber Heard is screwed. Dude is screwed. Like this doctor is just completely just burying her in the ground right now. It's so effective in terms of how confident she is, how informative she is. She's not just generalizing; she's giving actual specifics in terms of the diagnostics, and then linking it up to like depositions of what's been said before and situations that Amber has been in to marry it up with her diagnosis. It's just like it just comes full circle with this doctor in terms of how she's explaining it all and where she's got a diagnosis from. It's extremely effective, but also as well there's an art in terms of what she deals with in terms of the information, and the knowledge that she knows is extremely complex. Now, someone like me, who's dumb as shiz, all right, I'm not afraid to admit that, especially next to Mr. Christopher Melcher here, is, right, let's put it this way, if I can follow what this doctor is saying right now and understand it, you bet your backside the jury is following it as well. Because I could imagine, Mr. Melcher, it's very easy for an expert witness like this to just fall into technicalities and go really technical into it, where the jury could be completely lost and just not know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and that's what makes a great expert. It's almost like being an interpreter, taking all that complex technical language and putting it into terms that just make complete sense. But she did mention this Dr. Hughes, who evaluated Amber, who I assume is the contra to this doctor. And I assume we're going to hear from Hughes coming up on Amber's case saying there's nothing wrong with Amber.
Right. Hey, I was going to say, are they going to find a doctor that's just going to shit on Johnny too?
Well, I don't know if Johnny was evaluated. I mean, I haven't heard an indication of that.
We'll see.
But yeah.
But we have to admit, it's pretty easy to find some doctor who will give you whatever you want. Is that fair to say?
That's the thing. I mean, I love this doctor, and she's great. She did mention the word science. I consider psychology more of an art. But so, yeah, you can definitely get an expert who's going to say something else. But again, the opinion doesn't matter to me. The label doesn't matter to me. It's how she explained it, and like you say, how she
talked
tied
to
it
the jury
the evidence.
too, very well.
It's very, and it's going to set in, and they're going to say, aha.
Yeah, it's happening. Is her hairstyle, is that something she took time to do, Steph?
No.
Because I love it. Because it's like she's not. Amber's always too much together, and this woman just comes out, and I can see why we're all crushing because she hates Amber, or she's just destroying Amber. But it is something, I don't know. I buy it. She's not trying too hard and just being there. It just feels, all of it feels very credible. All right, here we go.
The instability definitely translates to their relationships. You'll see relationships start very intensely. People will, somebody with borderline personality disorder perceives the relationship as extremely close. This pattern of idealizing and devaluing is definitely at play. They do this with their lovers and also with their friends. And so this might be the perfect person, their perfect soulmate friend, perfect soulmate partner, and their engagement in the relationship is very alluring, very charming to the other person. And so initially everything seems great. But what occurs is that reality sets in. People are not perfect, even when we have a lot in common with them. Whereas most of us can accept somebody as a whole, somebody who has a little bit of flaws, and still think this is my great friend who always constantly running late for dinner. The person with borderline personality disorder, things are in these extremes, this black and white, we call it splitting. And so that person goes from being idealized, the perfect person, to dumpster. They are totally devalued. They are the worst friend. They don't care anything about me. I have better people around. And then there will be a repair, because the person with this disorder does feel remorseful after they have these reactions, angry, tell their friend off. But over time, it wears away at these relationships. And so what you'll usually see is many, many transitions in their friendships over the years, people who have sort of fallen by the wayside, who were really very close-knit at one time, and then, but there's not a lot of consistency in the long term. You'll also see that with their intimate relationships, many, many relationships, but none that are particularly long-term. So in addition to looking for Ms. Heard's general mental status, any psychological issues that were present, I also conducted the clinician-administered PTSD scale, the CAPS-5, which is the gold standard PTSD assessment. I very specifically was assessing to determine whether post-traumatic stress disorder was present, and it was not.
As a result of applying those protocols, what did you conclude?
Ms. Heard did not have PTSD, and there were also pretty significant indications that she was grossly exaggerating symptoms of PTSD when asked about them.
How did you make that latter conclusion?
One of the strengths of this test is to make sure that the person is responding accurately. And this test does that by not just asking people whether they have a symptom, but asking follow-up questions that draw out very detailed accounts of every single symptom of PTSD. And when you're really familiar with this disorder, which you need to be to administer this test, there are nuances in the way a person will describe their symptoms that have been shown repeatedly to indicate exaggeration or faking. There are also indications when somebody is clearly giving you a genuine response.
What is feigning?
Feigning is essentially faking or exaggerating symptoms that aren't present.
Does the CAPS-5 control for that?
It doesn't necessarily control for it, it can expose it. Because you're not just simply handing the person a checklist that says, here are all the symptoms of PTSD, why don't just check off the ones you have, which clearly if you're trying to look like you have PTSD, you would just check them all. The CAPS-5, because it requires them to describe in detail how they experience the symptom, where it shows up, what it looks like, what sort of examples they can give you. By the end of each symptom, you've gotten a very good picture of a couple things. One, does it meet the definition of the symptom? Are they getting it right? Is this actually the symptom, or are they kind of confusing this with something else? Number two, are they giving you very vague accounts, kind of a stereotyped idea of what the symptom is based on media or movies or something that actually is completely different from genuine experiences of this symptom? Or are they giving you a very genuine, heartfelt, sometimes minimizing, but it's ticking all the boxes? Their mannerisms while they're describing it the actual very specific, very nuanced, symbolic ways they're describing it. A lot of times it smells, it sounds. That all appears in genuine accounts, and it's something that people really get wrong when they're feigning.
Dr. Curry, you're not board certified, correct?
No, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist.
And you also have only been practicing approximately 8 years, is that correct?
That's not correct. I've been licensed for 10 years,
Okay.
and I've been practicing for about 15 years. That is correct.
And then I asked, have you ever arrived at that opinion in the time that you have served as an expert witness in this case? And your answer was, could you read that to the jury, please?
So no, it's not the task. What I said then was, no,
Dr.
that's
Curry,
not the task of Dash. That was never my task to determine. Can I say what that means?
No. And then the question is, so is it fair to say,
Can you repeat that one more
yes,
time? That
you did
confused
not
me.
disclose in any of the designations or in your report that you had dinner and drinks with Mr. Depp, correct?
I did not disclose that I was interviewed by the legal team, no.
I asked a different question. Are you trying to resist that you didn't have dinner with Mr. Depp?
I'm not trying to resist that, but it's not quite right.
Oh, I like her even more with the glasses. Oh my god. Sorry. Damn. At first I didn't notice. I stepped away. Sorry guys for a second, and then I saw the glasses. I'm
okay.
like, whoa.
Andy?
Kim, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to give a little bit of context. For the last video before Elaine started speaking, there were a couple other
Thank
really
you,
important
yes.
points that she made that I wanted to share with you guys. The first is that one of the things she said is that sometimes with BPD, when people have arguments, it's like cyclic. So it just goes on and on and on, and it doesn't end, which I thought sounded very familiar. Also, that people that have borderline can sometimes explode and try to keep the person that they're fighting with from leaving. They will physically try to restrain them to keep them from leaving. Again, very
Who's that sound
familiar.
like? Yeah.
And then,
Sorry.
yeah, and then the last thing was she said that when she asked Amber about PTSD, she handed her basically like a list of symptoms. And Amber checked off that she had 19 out of 20 of those symptoms. And then upon further discussion, they narrowed it down to 3. And then of those symptoms, she said they were more aligned with childhood trauma than they actually were with PTSD. So that's why she kind of ended at that level of why she's saying that she was feigning PTSD in general.
Yeah, I mean, that's
and
a
then
massive reveal. Yeah,
yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. So, and then we moved into Elaine coming up, and she just started hammering her immediately, saying that she wasn't board certified, but she is licensed and she is a doctor. And obviously we've seen how credible she is as a doctor. So, I mean, she tried really hard at that argument. It didn't go very well. She wouldn't allow her to explain things. There was actually a moment where you guys just saw it where she said, where Dr. Curry asked, she's like, can I explain what that means? And she was like, no. And everybody just started laughing because it was so ridiculous. It was just like,
well, actually, I want to
okay, she's on.
Yeah, since we have Christopher here, let me ask him that because I noticed that moment too. And when Elaine, I don't know if it played. Sorry, I stepped away for a second. I caught it earlier, but there's a moment. Did that play? Elaine, she's like, well, can I explain? Elaine's like, no. To me, that plays to the opposite of what Elaine wants. Like, doesn't that if the witness is trying to explain themselves and you're keeping on the narrative and you're saying no, doesn't it seem like they're hiding something?
Well, I mean, it could come across that way. I mean, classically in cross-examination, we're controlling what the witness says. We're just like, I want you to answer my question, don't give the explanation. But if the jury likes her, which I gotta imagine it does, the jury doesn't want to see her abused. And this lawyer is just, like I say, grating, it's irritating. And there was this other little series of questions that were asked that went absolutely nowhere. And it was like, are you expressing an opinion about the truthfulness? And she says, no, I don't give it. I'm not a lie detector. I don't tell whether people's true. And then she's like, well, let me read from your depo. And it's the same question, same answer. It's like, okay, why? You're just wasting our time.
Right.
So I think
they've been doing that a lot.
Yeah, the likability factor is really high for this witness and it's really low for that attorney. And that's something you have to be aware of because you want to identify with the jury. As the lawyer, you're the guide to the jury for the evidence, for the law. And if they hate you, they're just immediately going to curl up and not want to listen to you. And I think that's probably what's happening.
I mean, Steph, I don't mean to be weird, but when she threw those glasses on, I was just like, whoa! Oh.
Well, firstly,
My God, Lewis, right?
She-
This girl's a fox. It's the brain too. It's the brain too. But I'm just saying, she just stepped it up. You good?
I love you, Andy.
Oh,
I know
Lewis.
She just woke up out of bed. But
Oh.
anyways, this is for her.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you,
thank you,
Lewis.
Lewis.
Lewis. Oh, thank you, sir. We'll see you in a bit. Lewis at Nerd Report. Go subscribe.
I adore you, my friend. Thank
favorite.
you.
I know what she's writing. She's writing red rum on the paper.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lewis.
See you later.
It's gonna
Thank you,
get there.
Lisa.
Enjoy your presentation, Lewis. We'll have him back. We'll be here tomorrow.
Well-
Red Rum. Go ahead. So you're gonna say something, Steph?
So, firstly, with glasses, let's put it this way. If I was so inclined, I wouldn't say no to her with or without the glasses. Secondly,
I don't know why the glasses made her hotter, but they sure just
they
did.
do, right? Oh my goodness!
Sorry.
Wow, I do agree. I do agree. I do appreciate the female form. I'll give you that. So she says grossly exaggerating symptoms of PTSD. Basically, she don't have it. She's feigning it. In other words, faking it. Guess what, though, guys? Amber Heard's primary role in life, her job is being an actor. What the frick? She ain't gonna be getting any Oscars anytime soon. I'll tell you that. She can't fake PTSD effectively to be able to fool a doctor. That kind of gives you everything you need to know as Amber Heard as an actual actress. She's absolute dog shiz. And I don't know about you guys, this ain't a call to arms, you know, YouTube terms of service and all that lot. But for me, Aquaman sequel, giving it a hard freaking pass.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are. Let's fit. Kim, is this the last clip before we, or is there more? Just so I gauge how much.
This is the last clip.
And then we'll have some
just
more for the
before we-
bonus.
Yeah, okay, there is one for the bonus, but I think I just wanted to preface this. One other thing that happened after Elaine is done is Dr. Curry came back and there were a couple other banters, but Johnny's lawyer, sorry, I'm just reading my notes, so I want to make sure that I did that okay. Johnny's lawyer wants to clarify how Dr. Curry knew that Amber was feigning. And she explains that there was another test that she did that confirmed that Amber was in the 98th percentile, indicating extreme levels of exaggeration.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude is
So
screwed.
the rest of this clip is Elaine barking on that Dr. Curry, when she was approached by Johnny's legal team, went to Johnny's home for a dinner meeting. It was a 3 to 4 hour meeting where they talked about the case, which, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I'd love to hear Chris's opinion on this, but I mean, this is a high profile case. I'm sure they had a lot of things to go over. They needed to interview her before they decided to retain her. And I don't know where Johnny's team could have done this without potentially people spying on them or things like that. So they did it in Johnny's home. And she just will not let this go, of that, you know, you guys were drinking in this meeting, you had drinks, and she keeps correcting her, saying, you know, it was a meeting and food was served. And I
Christopher, when
had
you do a meeting with
drink with my
drinks,
food.
if you do a
Yeah.
meeting with drinks, does that become questionable? Of oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, when I first started hearing this line of questioning, I was getting a little bit worried because there are boundaries, and when you're a forensic, expert, you got to keep objective, and you don't want to play sides, and you have to maintain boundaries. And go into somebody's house and having dinner with them and drinks with them, that's not very unusual. Now, she was trying to explain about this whole, it's a high-profile case. The lawyer was trying to make it seem like, oh, you want the attention of a high-profile case. And what the expert was saying, no, is that Johnny can't just go to my office. He'll be followed. The paparazzi will be out there. He just really can't do that. And realistically, I need to go to him. I've never done it before. I've never done it afterwards, but that's the way it happened. And that's true. We all know from TMZ, and it's like they have all these photographs of people going in and out of lawyers' offices and all this stuff. So I think she did a good job explaining it, but it would have been better had there been a little bit more business-like and not dinner and drinks afterwards.
So it sounds like, I mean, not to get into specifics, of course, but you're kind of talking a little bit from experience there with some of, let's say, your high-profile clients. They can't just rock up to your offices.
Well, if
a
it's his
case of-
client, you can. It's a bit different if you're an expert, right? That's the difference.
Well, there's a different, I mean, I think anytime we got to control so the paparazzi are not there witnessing all this stuff. But yeah, me as a lawyer, I mean, I have boundaries too.
Yeah.
But certainly as a testifying expert, as a forensic evaluator,
You gotta be careful.
Yeah, there is some very hard boundaries there. I don't think she crossed them, but you know, it was a worrisome line of questioning, and I think the lawyer could have done better with it.
Let's hear some more of that questioning.
Dr. Curry, you're not
hold
board
on.
case. And your answer was, could you read that to the jury, please?
So no, it's not the task. What I said then was, no,
Dr.
that's
Curry,
not the task of Dash. That was never my task to determine. Can I say what that means?
No. And then the
Okay.
question is, so is it fair to say
Can you repeat that one more
yes,
time? That
you did
confused
not
me.
disclose in any of the designations or in your report that you had dinner and drinks with Mr. Depp, correct?
I did not disclose that I was interviewed by the legal team, no.
I asked a different question. Are you trying to resist that you didn't have dinner with Mr. Depp?
I'm not trying to resist that, but it's not quite right.
I mean, probably it was good on. This was probably Elaine's best performance, though. There, right? Because she is sort of resisting in a way. No.
Well, she's arguing with the witness, and she didn't get the right answer. She just say, you went to dinner with Johnny and others. Yes. You
Yes.
had alcohol. Yes. Okay. So, but she's such a not an accomplished lawyer.
She almost said something
Sorry. She got into an argument, and you don't win an argument with this expert. You're going to lose that argument.
Yeah, I won't say it, but
I'll
I
say it.
sensed
Elaine's a bad lawyer.
I sensed it.
She would get an F.
But he's right in that, because it's just like as someone who appreciates the law, right, and would do it. Like, Elaine, you dropped the ball. You had it.
Yeah.
You actually had a moment here where you probably could have
Would you
really
agree
discredited.
that if you did not find something that would be in favor of Mr. Depp and negative to Ms. Heard, that you wouldn't be an expert in this case? That I can bring
Essentially-
you into court if you're going to say that Ms. Heard is right and Mr. Depp is wrong, correct?
So as a forensic psychologist, my obligation is to the court, is to the fact finder. I present science regardless of what that science may be. Now, when I take a case, my retainer agreement is explicit about that, and I discuss
Dr.
that
Curry,
with the
I'm just
attorneys.
I'm asking you a question. I'd like you to try to answer my
Okay.
question. You understand that if you found favorably to Ms. Heard and negatively to Mr. Depp, you wouldn't be here, right?
The objection is speculation.
That's not speculation.
Yes,
I'll
it
sustain
is.
the objection. Next question.
How is that not
You were so
speculation?
excited.
If you didn't get the job, you would. How would she know?
Yeah.
How would she get the
And
job?
arguing with the judge is a ridiculous question. Like I say, not good at all.
Not good.
Excited about being involved in this case that you told your husband, even though this
Here
was
we
a highly
go.
confidential matter, that you
Here
were going to
is
be
the iconic.
conducting the examination of Ms. Heard.
Oh, here come the
didn't
muffins.
Ms. Bredehoff, that is not accurate.
you? What is accurate?
You're incorrect. That is not correct.
Is your testimony today under oath that you did not tell your husband that you were going to be conducting the examination of Amber?
That is my testimony.
So the question that was asked was because you brought muffins, you said, from your husband, right? And you gave those to Ms. Heard, correct?
May I clarify what occurred so that we can stop talking about the muffins? What happened was that I was getting ready
Oh, God.
Oh my God, muffins.
Oh,
All right,
wow.
let's see. I want to hear this.
frequently bring muffins to the office. My husband did happen to know that there was going to be a celebrity client coming in, because on the mornings that occurs, we have to actually clear the office and move the staff to the other office. So yes, I was getting ready. I asked him to go to the bakery near our house and pick up the muffins for me because I was running late. He often has to do that because I often do run late. He brought the muffins back to the house.
Oh, she's on Andy time.
I brought them into the office. Ms. Heard and I enjoyed the muffins together. I think I made a comment to her along the lines like, my husband got these for us today, meaning he purchased the muffins. We are now enjoying them because of him.
Oh my God! So she says that. Oh, my husband brought us muffins. Oh. And then Amber's like, "Well, her husband brought muffins. Can we use that? Can we use that? How react to that, please?"
Well, out of all the information that this lady has to say about Amber's personality, it was the muffin thing that stuck out. I mean, and that just totally backfired.
Yeah.
I mean, they're thinking, oh, I got her. And then it's like, no, total credibility. And you're also humanizing this person. You could see, like, she's married. Her husband sounds like a really nice, supportive spouse. It's not like some
excited for her. Oh, have fun today, honey. Yeah.
Depp Heard relationship that we've been hearing about. It's like, this is actually like a normal person.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just draw that out on cross.
They really aren't good at their job. They really aren't good at this. Well, I mean, and it's when I sense that, it must be harder because you've had to defend people. No, not putting you under pressure. You've had to defend people that you probably knew. I don't know if I believe this person, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean,
And that makes your job so much harder when you have to like do what. That's the role of a lawyer sometimes is to defend everybody.
And I've had to do that with some person who committed the most heinous crimes that you could imagine. And I stood up to the jury and I said, sorry to point to you, but this person is a vile human being.
Yes, I am.
And the client's like, well, thanks.
Yes.
But it's like, this person's a vile human being, but that's not what the case is about.
Right.
This is what the case is about, and I want you to be fair in evaluating the case based on the facts and the evidence, not what my client did. You got to diffuse it. But here it's like, no, I'm going to attack. Everybody is wrong. Amber's right. That can't possibly be true, and it can't possibly really work or convince the jury.
Yeah, and if anything, yeah, exactly. It's doing the opposite effect. It's wild to watch this.
Muffins.
The Muffin Man. Oh, the bravo to this. Of course, she's got this amazing husband who's buying her muffins. I mean, did you see her, guys? Bravo, sir.
I wish my partner bought me muffins. What to do? I think I'm missing a trick.
Kim, I need to know this Muffin Man. He must be so hot.
That was the joke today. Everybody was like, she's married to the Muffin Man. I just kept seeing that over and over again.
Oh my, I'm so fascinated.
So ridiculous.
I need to find this man. He must be like a god. Oh, all right, here we go.
Your testimony was
Just the rest,
that
yeah.
out of the blue, Amber hit Rocky Pennington, correct?
I can't remember exactly what I said, but I did reference Ms. Pennington's deposition that Ms. Heard struck Ms. Pennington in the face.
In
Yes.
fact, Ms. Pennington testified that she hit Ms. Heard, and in response to that, she can't recall, but Ms. Heard either pushed or slapped her, correct?
My recollection is that there was some sort of violence both ways in the relationship. Either way, it seems that both of them might have been unstable.
now
I'm
we-
only evaluating Ms. Heard.
So now we have an evaluation of Rocky Pennington
No,
from...
I just said, but that was not relevant to my opinion because I'm only evaluating Ms. Heard.
But you testified to that on direct that that was a factor, right?
Given the dynamic, not necessarily. No, it would not have.
So now you're an expert on Rocky Pennington and her dynamics with Amber Heard. I'll withdraw.
How does borderline personality disorder?
That's it. We're at the beginning now. All right, so we're getting this. We'll play this bonus clip for that because we have a lot. I did want to try and clip.
Yeah.
Kim, we had a lot of clips. Final thoughts from you as we go around. Then we're gonna still play some more clips. Don't go anywhere. But final thoughts, Kim. Anything else to add for the people who missed today? There was a big thing at the end, right? We had the LAPD. What was the officers came in? Can you explain that?
Yes, there was one officer who came in and just told her story when she was called for a DV incident. It really wasn't that exciting, so I summed it up in a paragraph, so I'm just going to read that to you.
Yes,
Forgive
go
me
ahead.
for not looking at the screen. I'm not trying to be rude. So police officer Melissa Science took the stand via video disposition. Elaine was cross-examining her first. They talked for a long time about what the protocol was for when they got a DV call. And then they talk about when she was called and what happened. Melissa is very clear that Amber's face was consistent with crying, not an injury, and that nobody that was there wanted to even talk to her. So it was hard for Melissa to be able to figure out what was going on because nobody would talk to her. And she did not give Amber what they called like the DV pamphlet because she didn't believe that a DV incident had taken place. And she saw no injuries on Amber.
This was
That
the
it.
officer right here that we're looking at.
Yes.
So interesting. So she saw nothing, and Amber didn't want to talk to her further, and there was no sign. We've heard this before, but this was the first officer or the second one? This is from the apartment fight, like near the end.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, that's pretty damning to hear. And this was something that the UK trial wouldn't even put into thing, which was bizarre to me. But there you go. We will go through that. If there's anything else that we miss or that near the end of the show, sometimes of the trial day we miss a little bit. If we get there, we'll clip that for you tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment, help the engagement. We're going to go through some more clips. I just want to plug quickly. Steph the Alternerd, make sure you go subscribe to Steph the Alternerd, and Mr. Christopher Meltzer over on YouTube and Twitter. You can find him to get more information. So glad to be here in Vegas as we bring you this trial every day. Still, even on vacation, guys, we can't stop because I know a lot of you guys just are so into this. We have still a whole month left. There's a week off on the 9th. We'll still give you updates on things. Let's go back to some other stories. But my gosh, Christopher, real quick, what are you most excited for in this? Is it the Amber Heard testimony? I mean, that's going to be fascinating, correct?
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think this is going well for Johnny in exposing Amber to show that she was the aggressor in the relationship, and now to understand like why she feeds off of this conflict.
Yeah, well, there's lots more to come. We're not done. We're going to play some more bonus clips. If you want to watch the bonus clips later and you missed this, hit join. I know a lot of you are confused. Why are you doing that, Andy? I try to make these shorter, and so when we're live, we go long, and I trim it to something tighter, so it's a little bit more digestible for people on the run to catch it, because I'm trying to keep these tight, and today was a long one. You'll see this clip later, and it'll be a little shorter. If you want to watch the full, unedited bonus part, become a member, join our members-only list, and if you missed this live, you can watch it there.